Hey everybody, what's up? We're here with some Infinite Magicraid today, and what I want to do is I want to very quickly break down each dungeon, and then we're going to talk about how to put together teams for it, because there's going to come a time where you can't just power your way through the dungeons anymore. You're actually going to have to start to take into consideration what each dungeon has as far as mechanics and ways to counter it and stuff. Like for example, in Rum, I'm up to 21. I'm creeping up on that point where I think I'm going to have to start thinking a little bit about my team instead of just letting Holder power his way through everything, you know what I mean? Um, so real quick, I want to just give you a quick breakdown of what each dungeon has going on, and then I want to talk about how to find the champs that you have that can be good for this kind of stuff. Okay, so really quickly, here's what you need to know about each dungeon. For Ifrit, attribute debuffs is what you want to take in. He's got some mechanics that if you have attribute debuffs up on him, it hinders him, right? It's bad for him, worse for him than other enemies to have attribute debuffs. So you want to take that. And then attack down is generally a good idea for these dungeons, right? If you can reduce the damage that the bosses are doing, that's great. So attribute debuffs is going to be what you want to take into Ifrit. For Gwyneth, you want to take a heal block. You want to be able to stop her healing mechanics, and then again attack down. Dot debuffs are usually going to be a good idea as well for every boss with the high HP. These things that scale with their HP are going to be good damage. So keep that in mind. I'm just talking about kind of like the main mechanic of each dungeon. For Rum, he takes a lot more damage from dot debuffs and less damage of any other type. So this is where it's particularly important that you bring your bleeds and your HP burns and your stuff like that, okay? You don't want to be trying to rely on your heavy hitters in here because he's going to take significantly less damage from them. It's all about the dot debuffs here, okay? For Nedja, the best I can think here is you need a lot of protection, a lot of cleanses, and then you're going to want to go dot damage heavy in here. But he's doing a lot of things to your team. He's reflecting damage and doing a lot of aggravating things that if you try to go in just super damage heavy, you're going to struggle, right? This reflect damage here, I think might be, you might have really heavy hitters in there and think, why am I dying so quick? Because I'm guilty of this sometimes too. I don't bother reading the mechanics of the dungeon sometimes for a while. I kind of did this for the first time very recently. And I realized this one seems hard, even though my champs I thought were pretty strong. The reflect damage is dangerous here, so you're going to need some protection, right? You're going to want to take some shields. You're going to want to take some heals. You're going to want to take some things to counter that. And again, probably some dot damage so that the damage isn't getting reflected to you when you hit him. So that's going to be a good thing to do in there. More protection, and again, kind of want to steer away from heavy hitting nuke champs, right? Because the harder they hit, the worse they're going to hurt themselves. For Growlin, shields. In my notes, I just wrote shields in all caps, and the reason is 15% chance to inflict stun on targets for 1 turn if they have no shield. Grants more damage to targets without shield, and gains 1.5% attack for every enemy that does not have shield. Have shield on your team for the entire fight if you can in here, okay? Shields are going to be a big way to go in here. And then, of course, attack down, dot damage, all of that. And then Marius has a lot of the freeze mechanics going on, so you want to take cleanses and block debuffs and things of that nature. And then, again, all the other things you would usually take into a dungeon being, crowd control for the minions, attack down, HP burn. You can get some turn meter reduction. I think they're not immune to it. They just take a little less turn meter reduction, right? Immune to control effect. Yeah, so turn meter reduction, he takes less, but it's still not a bad idea, right? If you can edge out a couple more turns against them, great. But anyway, that's a real quick rundown of what each dungeon has going on, right? And I think that's important to know at a certain point because, again, there's going to come a time where you can't just power your way through. I'm on stage 21, and there are 30 stages right now of these dungeons. So it's going to scale quite a bit higher, and it's going to get to the point where it's not going to, you can't just take your strongest champs in and win. You're going to have to realize what's going on. Fortunately for us, these dungeon mechanics are not very complicated, right? You get somewhere like Raid and Doom Tower, and it's like it's like you're studying for a final exam, trying to remember what all these bosses do. Here it's pretty simple. They've all kind of got one thing they do, maybe 2 things. So now let's talk about how to build a team for each dungeon. Let's say we wanted to make sure we're taking attribute debuffs into Ifrit. You can come into the gallery and you can click this search right up here, and this brings you the filter for all the different ways you can sort your champs, okay? You can sort by class, you can sort by mark, rarity, all these different things. And then hero tag, things that they do, right? So we can look through here, and we know that we're going to want debuffs, right? So we can sort by debuffs, and then we can come over here, and we can take a look at everybody. And if we want to, let's just go ahead and make it only epics, legends, and mythic. I know I don't have any mythics, but... And this will show you who you have and who you don't have from each tribe. And now you can come in and look at the champs that you have and figure out who's going to do something that you need them to do. And then you can also do a quick scroll, because there's a lot of tier lists out there right now of you know, popular champs and which ones are the best at which things. So now we jump in and we look around a little bit, and we see who we have that we think might solve the problem for us. We know we want attribute debuffs. So we can jump in here, take a look at her. She's got a bleed, and she's got defense down, but it's on a 4-turn cooldown, right? So we would love some A1 debuffs if we could get them. So we can pop in and just check their A1, because we want someone that's going to be able to keep these debuffs up. He's got a provoke, that's not going to work. We've got a defense down on the A1 here, right? So now we can look at the rest of his kit and see if he's doing anything else for us. He's got crit rate for all allies, which is fine. He gets an extra turn after that, which is cool. If he has Immortal, he is immune to this death. Restore self HP. Turn meter cannot be reduced. Okay, fine. And then his ultimate. So he's got the A1 defense down, but he's not really showing me anything else real special for this dungeon, right? We want champs that can do multiple things. We want to fill each role on our team with multiple important things. So if they've got an A1 attribute debuff, that's a great start. Then we want either some sort of protection for the team. If the A1 is not an attack down, maybe if they have an attack down somewhere else in the kit, or if they have some dot damage for us, some poison, some HP burn, some bleeds, things of that nature. You know, champs that can do multiple things for us. An A1 attribute debuff is not going to be enough here. Effect resistance down, that can help the rest of the team land debuffs, and I believe that's an attribute debuff as well. We've got a burn here, which is nice. We've got more damage to targets with burn, or I'm sorry, more burn damage, which is kind of dope. And then here we've got an AoE, burn, and defense down. She's actually a fantastic option for this dungeon, right? She every turn she takes is good for us. She's doing AoE damage, so when there's minions, she's going to help with those, as well as be pretty effective for us in the waves. She's got an attribute debuff on this skill as well. She does more burn damage, which is nice. It's going to speed the run up a little bit. She's got a target and 2 random enemies, which again, for the boss stage is great. Hit the boss, also hit the minions, and then an attribute debuff on the A1. She's actually really good, and I've never even looked at her before, but she's a good candidate for that dungeon, right? So she's a good example of someone that you would at least put a pin in while you're going through and looking at all the champs and seeing who's going to be good for you here. And that's, you just kind of follow that process, right? Let's say we were wanting to do one for Rum. We can jump in here and we can just select all of the dot style damage, right? Now I was hoping it would show me champs that had any of these things, not all of these things. I wish there was a way to sort based on that. So I guess you have to do it one at a time. Poison, then burn, then HP burn, then bleed, which is a little bit annoying. I wish there was a tag somewhere where it could be like, I want all of the champs that have any of these. Maybe that's an adjustment we can get made soon. But either way, it's still effective to come in here and do it like this. And you can come in here and see, again, there's some dot damage. She's actually pretty solid, honestly. Like Akhman, we all know, is a very popular champ for PvE progression, especially. So if your Akhman lights up there, he's going to be great in all of these dungeons, honestly. He's going to be great in most PvE situations, I think. Guild boss, he's fantastic. He's going to be great for all the dungeon bosses, I think. He's a pretty solid champ all around. HP burning. Liz, Liz is also fantastic. We all know Liz is one of the top epics in the game as well. She's going to be on most of your teams, I would imagine, if you have her. And then Holder, we know, is pretty good. So that's that. Now you see kind of why these champs shine, right? If we go and look at Holder, he's got bleed damage on everything he does. He's got self counter attack. Put him in Elite set. He self sustains really well. right? It makes sense. It makes sense that he's really good, so we understand why he's going to be in most of your teams. Liz, incredible support. On top of it, she's got HP burns, right, and shields. She fits into most teams really well, and you see why when you look at what each of these dungeons bring to the table as far as mechanics. So that's it. That's a quick way to do it. Now you know generally what each dungeon does, right? There's going to be a little bit more to it, but it's a good idea to have a solid idea of what the main mechanic of each dungeon is, and then you can kind of build around it and get teams that can get through the waves and then sustain themselves through the bosses. So hopefully this was helpful. I know that there's a lot to take in these games, so hopefully this is a way to just kind of simplify this particular part of the game for you and show you a little bit about the gallery and how to jump in and find champs that do certain things so you can fill these roles on your team. And yeah, that's it. If you have any more tips for any of the dungeons, if you've got a champ that's really good in any particular dungeon that you're using that you haven't seen talked about a lot, like if you're getting a lot out of someone that you are surprised. For example, I learned in this video right in front of you guys that she is actually pretty solid. I don't know. I haven't heard much about her, but she's one that I feel like might be pretty worth investing in. We might build her up and try her out and see how it goes. But anyway, that's it. I'm getting out of here. Hopefully this was helpful. If you got any more tips, drop them below. I will appreciate that, as I'm sure everyone else will. And that's it. I'm getting out of here. Appreciate y'all. Later.